Hi, and welcome to the first 10 minutes. Today, we're going to be talking about the beginning of your choral rehearsal, whether you teach elementary, middle school, high school, or a community or church choir. My name is Anna Wentlent. I'm a choral educator as well as an author and clinician here with Alfred. And even though I grew up in upstate New York and attended the Crane School of Music at SUNY Potsdam, I now teach in the international school community, and I'm currently at the American International School in Vienna, where I teach middle school and high school choir. I'm really excited to be here with you today. And our agenda during this session, we're going to start with a meditation just to kind of draw our focus inward and shut out the rest of the world for the 45 minutes to an hour that we have together. And then we're going to define our values as choral educators and really dig into the why of what we're doing in our classrooms. That will lead us into a discussion of those first 10 minutes of rehearsal. And we'll spend probably the entire second half of the session doing a sample warm-up procedure. And I'll share a lot of my own favorite exercises and rounds and silly songs with you. And then I have a reflection activity for us at the end of the year to sort of bring it all together. So if you don't have a piece of paper, please make sure that you grab one and a pencil so that you can jot things down as we go here today. So I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Okay, let's begin our meditation. This is something I will do often with my older students, especially if it's been a stressful time of day or time of year. We need to just kind of gather ourselves here in this space in the choral room and kind of refocus our attention inward. And so, if you feel comfortable, I'll ask that you begin by closing your eyes, and I'll guide you through the rest. Take 3 mindful breaths. And as you breathe, notice the expansion and the contraction of your chest and your belly. What does your body feel like as you breathe in and out? Relax more and more with each breath that you take, and let your body sink into your seat. Now, as you sit here breathing in and out, recall a time when you were really happy and get specific. What were you doing? Who were you with? What sensations, smells, sounds, emotions come to mind? Let the good feelings of this memory wash over you. And when you're ready, open your eyes. This meditation is from Mindfulness and Meditation by Whitney Stewart. And I won't do this every day or even every week, but maybe once a month when I think we really need it, right before a performance, maybe. I'll draw out something like this. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. This is one of my favorite quotes. I feel like it's very, very applicable to what we're doing in choral education. And in order to get at that idea of lighting the fire, we need to know why. Why are we doing what we're doing? So I'm going to ask you on your piece of paper to jot down a particularly meaningful moment from a class, rehearsal, or performance last year. Pick one thing that sticks out. And I'll give you a few seconds to do that on your own. As you're writing yours down, I'm going to go ahead and share my own. So here's a picture from my eighth graders who did George Chung's arrangement of Secret for the Mad. You may be familiar with this piece. It's sort of um, been been making the rounds over the last few years. It's a really impactful piece in which students contribute things that are weighing them down, that are causing stress or anxiety in their lives. And they're doing it anonymously. So the cards that you see these students holding are not their own cards. We pass them out randomly before a performance. So that, again, is also significant in that they're holding somebody else's burden. And there comes a point in the song where everybody flips their card. If you want to go online and search up the Vancouver Youth Choir performing it, they have a beautiful performance that is sort of the motivation for, I know, many of us who've done this piece. And the first time we did it in rehearsal, we've been working on the music for 2 months, and we'd had some really great conversations about what we wanted to say, and students had contributed their thoughts. Okay, finally we were at the point. Here we go. We passed the cards out, and we got to the point of the song where everyone flips their card. And the other side of the card is a thing that lifts you up and brings you joy in life and helps relieve your burden. And they had contributed things, my best friend, watching movies with my mom, coming home and seeing how happy my dog is to see me, talking to my older sister on the phone. There was just so many beautiful contributions. And the first time we did it in rehearsal, we're so focused on the logistics, right? Okay, everyone holding their card. Can you read the words? Who's got it too high, too low? And it came to the moment where we flipped. Everyone flipped, and the tears just started pouring down my face. I did not anticipate being so emotional as they flipped over to this thing that in the midst of the stressful life of a young student, that brings them joy. And I as I think about this past year, this is the one, this piece, and specifically this moment. It's like that it is it right there. That's my why, kind of summed up in one example. And I think it reflects the things that I have come to really value as a choral educator. So I think it can be kind of summed up in joy, that feeling of singing for singing's sake, just because it feels so, so, so good. Belonging, creating a safe environment in which my students can be themselves, where it isn't expensive for them to be themselves. And I think about that term, the expense of being yourself, and how that changes as a student moves through their day. And I want them to be able to come and just let it go when they come into my room. And then those two things, joy and belonging, will allow us to make music that is really personal, that is heavily weighted with personal meaning and external context. And I think that piece, Secret for the Mad, is a really beautiful contemporary example of that. These are my three values, and they have changed in the time that I've been teaching. In the last, I guess I started teaching when I was 22, so 18 years. But I know that they'll continue to change as I get older too. So here I am in the middle of my career, and this is where I am right now. It's a little snapshot in time. And a book that had a big impact of me when I was in graduate school is Growing Musicians by Bridget Sweet. That's what it looks like. And it's a great quote she has: making music is not a competition. It is not a race to the top. It is a unique chance to work together, feel together, emote together, create together, and more. And I just really appreciate the reminder that this quote gave me as a young teacher, that I don't have to model my class off of math or model my class off of the advanced AP science courses. Those classes have value for sure, and I'm glad that my students are taking them. My class gets to be something different, and that's a unique opportunity, that we get to set aside that competition, that we get to set aside the anxiety that often comes with that kind of coursework, and just find joy in singing together. What an amazing thing to do with our time. Our kids have chosen to give up an hour of their day to us just to sing. And that's not a lot of adults I know in my life who do that, who take time for things just because they find joy in them. And I want to both model that for my students and encourage it in them to take time in life, the things that bring you joy. And so, what does this look like in action in the choir room? If I'm really living my values, joy, belonging, connection, in order to do that, I want to have a rehearsal structure in which we can move around, we can play, and there has to be though boundaries in which that can occur. So there's boundaries created that allow us the freedom of taking risks and playing with each other a little bit. And that means we need consistency. So from day one, that my students know what to expect from my room. I've taken away the uncertainty. They feel comfortable and they feel safe. And I want to set the tone for that with my warm ups. So for the very first day, the first warm up sequence I do, that we're getting our voice ready, we're preparing our body physically for the work, but we're also emotionally and mentally preparing for the work we're going to do, and the expectation of how I want my students to engage with that work I'm setting in place from the very first warm up. And that might mean during the year a little less performance music if I want to really do these other things well. Little less performance music, more opportunities for group discussions, more opportunities for listening to a song of the day, for doing small group work, for arranging popular music. All of these things take a little time. It might mean that either my concerts are shorter, I do less concerts depending on the age of my group. That's a choice that I've made. And along the way, I'm doing some of these things on purpose because I want to kind of grow that vulnerability muscle so that we're going to slowly ramp up the vulnerability required. So that rather than just jumping off the deep end with an original composition project, we've done so many little things. We've done silly songs. We've created class arrangements. We've arranged our own pop songs in small groups. Bit by bit by bit, we've worked our way to where we feel really, really comfortable letting that wall drop and being vulnerable with each other. And along the way, we're slowly ramping up in challenge and rigor. And we're doing that through purposeful programming with music that serves the students rather than the other way around. And I believe this strongly as educational choral leaders in a K-12 setting, which most of us probably are, is that the music we're choosing serves our students. Our students don't serve the music as they would if we were in, an adult ensemble or professional ensemble, like some of us may be in our personal lives. There's different purposes depending on the ensemble. And here we're talking about an educational ensemble with students. Today, we're going to talk about these two. So we're focusing on the structure and we're focusing on specifically within that structure, the warm up sequence as the thing that's kind of the bedrock that happens every single day in our choral rehearsals. So, first, let's talk about rehearsal structure. And I really believe clarity must happen before accountability. And we've all experienced this to some extent. If we want to assess something, we have to teach it. If we're going to hold our students accountable to an expectation, we have to clearly explain and model what that is. And so I would like you to brainstorm based on your own classes from this past year. What are you most proud of? And now we're talking logistics. So we're not talking necessarily about a performance. It could be the logistics of putting on that performance. It could be something to do with your classroom structure, the way your room is organized. As you think about rehearsal structure, what are you most proud of? Take a few seconds to jot that down. And when you're ready, you knew this was coming, from the elements that are within your control, knowing there's a lot of things we can't control. What is inconsistent or frustrating? And there's going to be a lot of things that are inconsistent or frustrating that you personally cannot change without the support of others. So let's focus on the things that we can change, that we have the power over. What are the moments in your rehearsal that you're unsure of, that you find are unstable on a regular basis, that maybe kind of ebb and flow depending on the students present, the time of day, the time of year? Maybe there's something you've always wanted to do, you've seen someone else do, and you just haven't figured out the right way to implement it. Maybe your do now is inconsistent. Pick one thing, though. And I want to talk about my one thing. This is the thing that when I was a 22-year-old, I most struggled with: classroom management. And I luckily was given the gift of the first days of school by Harry and Rosemary Wong. There it is. And Harry and Rosemary pointed out the need for procedures and routines. Procedures meaning what I, the teacher, want done, routines meaning what my students will do automatically. And the concept of humans being creatures of routine and habit. And if you yourself, as the teacher, do not establish one, your students will automatically establish one. And then it's probably not going to be as productive or time efficient as the one that you would have established in the first place. So the need to really think through what I wanted to happen in my classroom on a micro level was something I had just not been prepared for as an undergrad, right? I knew a lot about music education, about choral repertoire, about vocal performance. I had not thought about classroom management to the degree I needed to. And I tiptoed into it when I was student teaching. And with the help of my student teaching supervisors and many wonderful colleagues since, have been able to wrap my head around this. The idea being that effective teachers have the room ready, effective teachers have the work ready, and they have themselves ready. That you've thought it through and prepared in advance so that you're not having to do it on the spot. And I'm sure we all can think about those moments when we were young, when we were reacting to a student, trying to do the right thing, trying to do the appropriate thing, hold them to a standard while also not losing our cool. And in our brain are 1,000 different possibilities of how to react and what to say and where to go next. Because we weren't really ready. We still had to think through the possibilities, with the goal being that before we choose a single piece of music, we've thought through it all and we've considered how we want students to do the following: enter our room, find the location of their first assignment. Through every single little moment, we've considered it and we've specifically decided how we want it to happen so that when it comes up, we're able to address it adequately. And all of these things on the screen, these happen so often, every single day, many of them, that we're going to want to teach them explicitly at the beginning of the year until they start to happen automatically. And that's what Harry and Rosemary Wong talk us through, this three-step model. We start by explaining and modeling the expected procedure. I explain to kids, if you need to sharpen your pencil, here's where the pencil sharpener is, and here's how you do it. You don't have to ask, you just get up quietly, you go sharpen it, you come back to your seat. In the first few days of school, every time the opportunity presents itself, we're practicing that. I'm correcting when needed. I'm explaining to the class what should have happened. I'm being really explicit in rehearsing this procedure. And then I can just reinforce until eventually it becomes an automatic habit. Everybody's doing it. No one's asking permission. Everyone's being quiet. They're emptying the pencil sharpener when needed. All the things are just flowing without me having to devote any brain power to it. And that's the goal with a lot of this, is that everything starts to flow. Kids know what to expect in your classroom. That makes them feel comfortable and safe. That allows you to release yourself from those tiny little logistics and get to focus on the fun of what's happening in rehearsal and interacting with kids and just enjoying the like meat and potatoes of your job. So I'm going to share with you one possibility of what this might look like in action. This is basically what I would do with my sixth and seventh graders to start the year. So it's day one of choir, and I'm greeting them one by one at the door. That's my go-to throughout the year, to be at the door. I'm giving each one a blank personal profile. So as they enter, they can find their pre-assigned place and immediately begin that do now, which is filling out the profile. So I've assigned that place in advance. And I'm giving them some time to fill that profile out. And then I'm going to practice handing you papers in, not randomly. It's according to that procedure I've already considered for myself. It's a perfect opportunity. Let's practice doing it that way. Next opportunity, we're going to stand up and sing together. So I'm going to practice standing them as one, the way I'm going to do every single day for the rest of the year. And when I go through my warm-ups together, again, I'm going to purposely do it exactly the way I'm going to do it again the next day and the next and the next. So that we start to get used to what it means to warm up with Miss Wentlent in this middle school choir room. And I'm purposely going straight to the bell because I want them to practice leaving the room according to my way. It's not even going to be a thought in their heads that they would get up on their own because there'll be an automatic habit of I wait until Miss Wentlent dismisses me at the official end of class. And everything on here is done with purpose, especially those pre-assigned places. I believe pretty strongly in this, that in a choir setting, you have many considerations for where a student goes, their voice being the primary one, their musical knowledge, their ability to read music, their height. There's a lot of choral factors that will determine where people sit. And from day one, I want them to get used to like, we're not choosing our seats in this room. That's just how it is when you're in a music ensemble. It's a little bit different here than it might be in another space in the school. And so whether it's purposeful or it's just random, because I don't know the kids yet, so I'm just handing out seating assignments without much thought. The point is, it's not by choice. I've done it in advance and the students find their place, and it releases them from that stress too of having to find a place. They just get to go and sit. They don't have to worry about who they're sitting next to and where their best friend is and where that guy that they're like might be deciding to sit. They just get to go right past that and focus on what we're doing here academically. The point of being in choir is to sing, and you'll notice on this last slide that even though it's day one, by the fifth bullet point there, we're standing and we're singing. And so as I go into day two, I want to make sure that I get through these first few things pretty quickly. The point of doing them is to get in the room efficiently, to start on time, to start productively together, to set out the outside world and get started on the work of choir. And it serves a purpose of getting us ready then to sing. So now I can get into singing and let singing be the bulk of my time together. And in another class, you might talk about student talk time. How much time are students getting to talk versus a teacher getting to talk? In, for instance, a social studies class. But in choir, I want to focus on music making time. How much time are we actually singing versus just talking about singing? And so those first four things on the list, I'm trying to do in 5 minutes or less so that I can get right to it and show my students too that I understand why they're here and I value singing just like they do and get to that thing that brings them so much joy. Again, notice at the bottom, I'm going straight to the bell. We're leaving according to my procedure. It's basically just day two, repeating a lot of those same procedures we did on day one. That leads us to day three. It's starting to look familiar now, only today we've got folders. We deal with our folders as our do now, and then we can get into the activity. And at this point in the year, we're doing a lot of singing of warm-ups, silly songs, rounds, just to get ourselves singing together before we have any kind of performance music. And maybe even have a little bit of get to know you activity at the end, such as speed dating for friends. And I think I have, there it is, speed dating for friends. So this is a fun one that I do. Oh, sometimes at the beginning of the year, sometimes at like Valentine's Day. Basically, we just stand in two lines. Everybody's opposite a partner. Sometimes you might have to have a group of three, and they have to talk to the person across them for 3 minutes. And the point is not to stop talking, to keep the conversation flowing. And I'll put a few conversation starters on the board, things like, if you were stranded on an island, what one food would you choose to have for the rest of your life? Things like that for the kids who are a little more shy and need a suggestion to get going. And then my job is just walking around, making sure everybody's staying engaged and ringing that bell that means to rotate. So that's a fun one for getting to know each other and getting outside of like, just talking to the same people all the time. Speed dating for friends. So that brings us to the kind of the nitty-gritty here. So within the first section of your rehearsal, the warm-ups and the importance of setting the tone within your warm-up sequence. So this is my warm-up sequence for pretty much uh, all ages, whether I was working with upper elementary, like fourth, fifth, sixth, up to early high school, ninth, 10th grade. I would be going in basically the same order with some shifts according to ability level, especially towards the end as we get into solfege patterns and other exercises, rounds, harmonic work that we might do, is where I'll start to vary according to the students that I'm working with. But always, regardless of ability level, I want to ease into singing. For the young ones, I want to ease into singing because some of them are taking a risk just by being there. Maybe their friend convinced them to join, or their parent said, you have to take a music, so you're signing up for choir. And I want it to be a gentle on ramp to using that singing voice that not everybody has used a lot in their life. Um, at the other end of the spectrum, I might be working with high schoolers who've been in choir a long time, and some of them have a ton of singing experience, and they've taken voice lessons and singing in honor choirs outside of the regular school day. But still, those kids are moving through a busy, stressful day, and choir is just one of many things they do. And when they walk in their room, again, they need that transition time of setting down the day and focusing on choir, slowly activating their voice, their body, their brain, their emotions as they focus on the work that they're going to do together in this space as a choir. So, regardless of the group, I'm looking for a slow on ramp to singing. So here's an example of something I might do with a younger group. This is Boom Chicka Boom. And in the upper corner of your screen, you can see the book it's from. It's a book that I wrote called the Choral Playbook. And as we go through this warm-up sequence, you'll see a little icon telling you what each thing is from. And then at the end, I'll dive into them in more detail, and you'll have a chance to take a screenshot or write things down. So here's Boom Chicka Boom. It's spoken. And on your screen, you see just the first two lines. I'm going to keep going past that. So just be listening to me because it's an echo song. So everything I say, you say, including, you could see here, the word say. So when I say boom chicka boom, you'll repeat, say boom chicka boom. Okay, here we go. Say boom chicka boom. Say boom chicka boom. Say boom chicka rocket chicka boom. Ha ha, hee hee. One more time in a pirate voice. Say boom chicka boom. Say boom chicka boom. Say boom chicka rocket chicka boom. Ha ha, hee hee. One more time in a very quiet voice. Say boom chicka boom. Say boom chicka boom. Say boom chicka rocket chicka boom. Ha ha, hee hee. One more time in an opera singer voice. Say boom chicka boom. Say boom chicka boom. Say boom chicka rocket chicka boom. ha, hee hee. One more time, like a rock. Last time, I always do opera singer because it really gets us using our voice in a very silly, fun way. And then like a rock, rocks can't sing or talk, so they're silent at the end. And then you can move on. And usually at that point, everybody's really with you. If you're working with fourth, fifth, or sixth graders, they're right there and they're ready then for the next direction. So here's a physical warm up I do called marionette doll that's focused on body alignment. You start kind of slouched, whether you're sitting or standing, you're slouched, and you're going to pretend like you're a marionette and you've got a string coming out of the top of your head. And you're going to slowly pull that string, not your hair, the string, and let it straighten your spine, not onto your tippy toes, just your spine all the way up through your neck to the top of your head. And then eventually you can drop the string. Now you can also, as you're pulling your string up, as you get straight, take an imaginary pair of scissors and cut. And then probably the last time, as you're pulling your string up, you're going to leave your string in place. Bring your hand down, and you're hopefully tall with a straight, tall spine, and you're ready for some breath work. We're going to do some box breathing here. So I'd like for you to start on empty, blow your old air out, and inhale 4, and then suspend, and now exhale and empty. Again, here we go. Breathe in and suspend and exhale and empty. One last time, ready, and in and suspend and exhale and empty. Box breathing is one of those techniques, they teach you not just in choir, but through lots of activities, including before a job interview to calm yourself. So I like to pull this one out, especially if it's the time of year where there's a lot going on. My students are stressed. Maybe they come in the room with a lot kind of going, and we need to just get it together. Box breathing usually comes out on those days. And then we're ready to sing. So I pretty much always start warm-ups with either a hum or a lip buzz, something that's semi-occluded and is less pressure, easier sound creation. So we're going to do a hum here. Then we can open up to an NG, like the end of the word sing. And finally a vowel, ah. Ah. And now I can connect them together. I'm basically going to repeat that first measure as I do my hum, NG, and ah, and then eventually end on the half note. So it'll be ah. Let's try 2 together. Ready, go. And then we can actually get into initial vocalization. Here's one from the Tried and True Complete Choral Warm-Up book by Russell Robinson and Jay Althouse. This book was a huge help to me, especially as a young choir director, because they do such a good job of explaining each warm-up, the rationale for it, the look-fors as a teacher, the problems that kids might have, helping you anticipate those. So I found it really educational as a young teacher. This one, we're going to start up in the key of F on a C. Meow, 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 me. Meow, 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 me. And sometimes when we do this in my room with the younger kids, we'll just really make it about me in that moment. Like meow, 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 me. And just kind of do some mirror poses as we sing. You'll see that I do a lot of silly and serious movement throughout all of my warm-ups, including this one, vowel shapes. So again, we're in the key of F. I like to start high and then descend from the head voice through the lower register. And as we do this, we're going to do the vowel shapes with our hands. So me, we're going to pull a string out of the top of our head. Me is like you're like smoothing your fancy mustache. Ma, this is a lot about facial hair, I'm realizing. Ma, you're going to stroke your beard like you're a dwarf in Lord of the Rings. You're stroking your beard. Mo, you're going to just circle your mouth, and moo, pull that shape out of your mouth like a scarf or a string of spaghetti. And so all together it goes. And these are the same shapes that then I'm going to use when we do this. You know, we're trying to get all of the same ma vowel in a piece. I'm doing this ma, and they're really used to that, and they know exactly what that is because we've done it in warm up so many times. So let's do this, and we're going to descend by half steps, maybe 3 times. Ready, go. I love that warm up. And now we're getting into what I call transitional warm-ups. So this would be things that are going to stretch our voice a little bit, maybe going into other registers. And I love this warm-up from Vocalized by Andy Beck. A lot of you are probably familiar with it. It's warm-ups that actually teach technique, like the words about the technique are the lyrics that the students are singing. And so this one is about keeping that head tall on the spine and the chin level so that you're not stretching for the notes one way or the other. And it sounds like this. Though the notes may rise and the notes may fall, hold the chin level with the head up tall. And I love to do it while balancing a choir folder on our head. Sometimes we've been doing a little competition. If we're going to repeat it maybe 5 times as we modulate, who's left with their choir folder still standing at the end of the exercise. That's though the notes may rise. When we get into diction warm-ups, there's 1,000 fun ones. This is one of my favorites. Again, you'll see it in that book, The Choral Playbook. It's called Be a Bay. Sounds like this. Be a bay, B-E-B, B-I, bicky bye, B-O, bo, bicky bye, bo, boo, bo, boo, bicky bye, bo, boo. And you really want to be percussive with those consonants. Now, once your kids are really stable, they're just flowing along, you can start to change the consonant. So it could be a T, T-A-T, T-E-T, T-I, ticky-tie, T-O-to, ticky-tie, to, to, ticky-tie, to. The vowel stays the same, the consonant changes. You can get into consonant combinations, chi-a-che, fr, free-a, fray, sl, slee-a, slay. Yeah, there's a few consonants you're not going to want to do, depending on the age of your singers and their maturity level. So just think through in advance whether you really want to choose the consonant D, for instance. I'll let you make those choices for yourself. And then usually I transition into some solfege work, and it will depend, on the time of the year and the level of the students. But when it's the beginning of the year, we're doing a lot of exercises that feel really fun and just get silent or solfege back into our mouths again. And then let us segue into maybe the sight reading work that we're doing, depending on the sight reading curriculum that you might use. So this is the one a lot of us know. You can do it on numbers or on solfege. It's do, re, mi, re, do, and on and on and on, adding one note higher each time as you go up the major scale. When I do solfege, I always make my kids do the hand signs. So do, re, mi, re, do. Sometimes we do hand sign shorthand. In this one, we might just hold the sign we're getting up to each time. Do, do, re, do, do, re, mi, re, do, re, mi, fa, mi, re, do, and so on and so forth. And then eventually we'll do something called mess up, sit down, which I'm pretty sure I first learned from my high school marching band instructor. Mess up, sit down is just like it sounds. Everybody starts standing, but when you mess up, you have to sit down. And so I introduce it with something fun like this that's kind of like low pressure. And then we'll use mess up, sit down throughout the year for other things like when we're doing rhythmic counting, when we're doing sight reading, maybe when we're like just digging into a hard section in a piece. And kids of all ages seem to love mess up, sit down. The concept is we start all together at a very slow, manageable tempo. When you mess up, you sit down. Who's ever left goes again, but a little bit faster. And you keep going and going until there's one kid going do, re, mi, re, do, really, really fast. And they're the champion for the day. That's mess up, sit down. It's at this point in rehearsal that if I was working with older students, I'd probably branch off into some harmonic work. And a new warm up collection that I'm really loving lately is harmonic warm ups from Lost and Gould. You can see the little icon there in the top of your screen. All of the warm ups in this collection involve harmony singing in some way. So sometimes it's like you see on the screen, just two lines that can be sung in canon. And then this is from one of the earlier chapters. It quickly gets more difficult from there. So you can kind of pick and choose. And for most examples, there's kind of a beginning version. Day one of doing this might be what you see on the screen. And then you can make it more complicated and expand the canon. Over the course of several days and really put the warm up to use in your warm up sequence here. So I would probably teach this on solfege, and we would all sing the top line together. Do re mi fa sol la sol fa mi re do. Then once we were confident with that, move to the syllable. Dee 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 dee. And now I'm going to sing again as if I'm part one, and feel free to come in on part two. We could even have part three or part four. Here we go. Dee, 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 dee. And now let's do it two times through again. I'll be part one, you be part two. Dee, 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 dee. Dee, 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 dee. If I was singing with younger students, so we're going the opposite direction, after we've done solfege work, we're probably progressing into something like a silly song or a canon. So where this is our moving into our upper level harmonic work, these are those kiddos who are just still singing in unison, echoes, and partner songs. So here's the unison song that I really love. It's an American camp song called Once an Austrian Went Yodeling. It's going to start with an avalanche, and then we're going to quickly add on. So here's the melody. Once an Austrian went yodeling on a mountain top high, when along came an avalanche interrupting his cry. Yodelay-kee, yodelay-kee, yodelay-koo, yodelay-kee, yodelay-koo, yodelay-kee, yodelay-koo, yodelay-kee, yo. I go back to the top. I'm singing it a second time. This time something else comes along. The kind of standard ones are grizzly bear, milking cow, but you can take suggestions from your kids. They'll probably be crazy ones. My kids will suggest like an alien spaceship or a potato rolling downhill. And then you're going to add them on. So when you get to the chorus, yodelay-kee, yodelay-koo, swish, swish, beep, as the alien comes through, and on and on and on. So you have to remember all of the different things that you've added on. This is a great one for kids who are still nervous about singing. You're going to do it so many times, it's going to start to flow. And it's silly enough that it's an easy buy-in. Even the kids who are a little reluctant to sing will often find themselves singing by the end. This is once an Austrian went yodeling. And then we're usually getting into rounds. Here's a fun one. I think I mentioned it earlier in my like example from the beginning of the year, because I always teach it at the beginning of the year. The happy birthday round. We wish you a happy birthday, a joyous and happy birthday to our dear somebody. We wish you a long, long life. And on the word somebody, which will be someone's name, we're going to do jazz hands towards that person. You can do it in unison. You can do it in two parts with your younger singers. You can go up to three or four parts with your older singers. This is one I teach at the beginning of the year, and then I pull it out constantly when it's somebody's birthday and sing it in all different combinations. So we'll say, okay, part one, part two, or back row, front row, middle row, or everybody who just had a birthday in the last 2 months, you start us off. So I just kind of mix it up every single day, and they vary it without even realizing it or thinking about it because they're so comfortable with it. It's just kind of rolling off the tongue. That's the happy birthday round. Let's sing it one time together. You can sing with me in unison or come in as if you are part two. We wish you a happy birthday, a joyous and happy birthday to our dear somebody. We wish you a long, long life. Nice. That's the happy birthday round. I also find it's nice if all of your kids in your program know something in common. So something like the happy birthday round or another canon that you've taught them. That's a nice thing to be able to just whip out as needed, either in a warm up, in a voicing, even in like a entry level audition for younger singers. I'll often make my kids at the beginning of the year sing around like this with me as part of an audition if they're auditioning for maybe like an extra after school choir to demonstrate their independence before they have a lot of other stuff. And before we're ready to make sight reading a part of an audition, we might do something like this. So I just love having something in common. It's easy for me to then pull it out and use it when I need it. Another round that I've come to love, this is Rise Up, O Flame. I found it in the Vocalized Canon collection. This one I'm going to do later in the year, probably with older students. It's a very old round with a modal sound. It's going to go Rise Up, O Flame, by thy light glowing. Show to us beauty, vision, and joy. You can actually do it beyond four parts. You could go up to eight parts with this. And I love to really mix it up with my kids and let the sound kind of be entering from all different parts of the room. And we can work on a lot. There's a lot here. We can work on the shape of our phrase. We can work on the melisma created like blah. Speaking of, what's the vowel sound on flame? Getting into how we sing a diphthong, what the shape of that should be in our mouth, the tuning here in this key that is not major and is going to be a little bit more work to get in tune together. There's just a lot. This is both educationally sound and also really fun to sing. I do it with my eighth and ninth graders, and it's just such a it's an easy one to feel good about for that age group. Like it feels meaty quickly in like no time at all. On the concept of movement, you've seen me moving a lot here on the screen. I do it all the time, whatever the age of my students are. From day one, we're shaping that sound when we warm up. We're doing silly dance moves. We're using Kerwin's hand signs every single time that we use solfege syllables. It's just ingrained in our bodies. We're walking to the beat. We're circling up as a section and more. And I was one of the people who just like loved Anxious Generation when it came out last year. I poured over it, and there was a lot that that really made me feel like, yes, we do that in choir. It's an example of something that we're doing together physically. We're physical embodied creatures who evolved to use our hands, facial expressions, and head movements as communication channels. And I want to lean into that in choir. That's a beautiful opportunity that we have. And I want to do it right from day one. The idea being that if my kids have walked to the beat on day one, they're going to be able to do it again and again and again throughout the year more easily, more quickly, more efficiently, with no debating me, no moaning and groaning. We've done it 1,000 times and we just do it again. And now circling up as a section, the first time we do it, again, I'm really like teaching the way I want it to happen. I take my time. If it's not quite right, no, I'm making go back again. I fix that circle. Okay, eventually we're at the point where I can say, please circle up 10, 9, 8, and I start my 10-second countdown and they know exactly what to do. And they're almost always in place before I get to 10. By the time I get to 4 and 3, I'm like, beautiful, here we go. We're working on this today. And we've done it so many times, it's an automatic habit. So it's pretty much with any type of movement, I want us to get to that point where we're not having to reinvent the wheel and debate things with our kids or justify it. It just happens automatically because we've done it so much from the beginning of the year. So now we come to the end of our session, the end of our warm up sequence. And I want you to think about uh, what's what's in your head related to your values as you wrap up this session and any other ones that you might have attended this summer. So this reflection sheet is what we'll use to do that. So if you could find a blank spot on that paper that you grabbed and draw yourself a grid. And in the top corner of the grid is where you're going to write down those values. So I had shared with you that mine were joy, belonging, and connection. Depending on the choir that you lead, yours might be different or the same. What are your values, though? Go ahead and name them there. What's the point of doing that work in your classroom each day? What do you want your students to get out of it? And as you think about the year to come, your next box is something you want to take with you, something that's going well, that you're already doing and you feel successful about, and it meets those values that you stated. So, for instance, I might say for myself, standing by the door to greet my students. I do it every day to the point of if there's a day where something's come up and I'm not, they come in the room almost expecting me to be absent because they're so used to it. It's just the automatic. They walk down the hall and there I am. I'm really happy with that as part of our entry routine, and I want to continue that into the new year. So something you want to take with you. The opposite about that, something you're willing to let go. And I think about this a lot in terms of programming. I think that's an easy way to understand it. As you think about diversifying your repertoire choices, you have to be willing to let go of a little bit to make room for more diverse voices, right? So you've got to do a little less of something else in order to make room in the performance schedule for those other things that you're saying you value. And so the same thing applies to your rehearsal structure or your warm-up routine. If there's something you want to add, what might be something that you're willing to let go or to do less of to make more space for that thing? And then the last square, next steps. So as you go into the new school year, what one or two things might you do that are going to help you get closer to those values that you stated? And you're probably not getting there next year. This is an ongoing journey that will take you until retirement and beyond. But what are one or two practical steps that will get you a little bit closer to where you want to be? Maybe something from this session that we talked about today, from another session you've attended, from a recent director you've watched that really inspired you, something that magically worked last year that you're like, oh, wow, that was amazing. I want more of that in my classroom. What are the next steps for you as you head into the next school year? The resources that I use today were primarily from the Choral Playbook. That's the book that I mentioned that I wrote 2 years ago. It's warm-ups, rounds, rehearsal strategies, silly songs, solfege exercises, and more, all of them designed to bring us together as a community of singers in the classroom. And there's some additional samples of the kinds of things you might find in there, in addition to the ones that I shared with you today. And then I grabbed some things from, again, that's standard, the complete choral warm-up book, the new and incredibly valuable harmonic warm-ups from Lawson Gould, the perfect blend, which some of you may already have in your library. It's a bestseller for a reason. It's been around a long time. And then the two vocalize plus vocalize two, which is not shown on here. That's the third book in the series. Today I used Vocalize One and also the Vocalize Canon collection. They are worn through. I need new copies of, especially Vocalize One. I use it so much in my classroom. It's really become an essential resource for me. And then one final, the Resonant Male Singer from Shawnee, which is specifically about the changing male voice, navigating that transition with your young cambiatas and baritones. These are just some of the resources that I use on a regular basis and that I pulled from today. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have an incredibly relaxing summer and a wonderful start to the next school year. Thank you.